Shalom, shalom, everybody. Welcome back to Reading with Shilo. Hope all y'all are doing well. We back for the second round of Reading with Shilo today. Back on the Conflict Resolution Playbook by Pollack. We're moving along. We're on part 4. We're on part 4 of the book, chapter 17 to be exact. Get my stuff together. And I hope that y'all ready to jump into it, man. We almost done. We almost done with the book. Depending on how I read tonight, man. I'm going to do 17, 18, and 19 for sure. But depending on how I'm reading and the time-wise, I might push past that and go to... I think it's only 22 chapters. Yeah, no, we almost done with the book now. We got one more session. Really, one more session with this book. Tonight, I'll stop at 19. I really could finish it. I probably could finish it tonight and get it out the way. 17 through 22. We'll see how it's reading. This will be part 4, and I guess 17 through 22 will fit into part 4 of the book. Let me go back to the front. Yeah. 17 through 22 is part 4. Classic conflicts. Specific strategies for universal problems. Sharing and receiving criticism. That's chapter 17. Chapter 18. Handling passive aggression. Chapter 19. Responding to gaslighters. Chapter 20. Dealing with insubordination. That's the one I want to read. I want to hear what they say. Chapter 21. Resolving a conflict with the supervisor. And chapter 22. Confronting a bully. But we are going to start with chapter 17. Sharing and receiving criticism. Sharing and receiving criticism. Part 4. Classic conflicts. Specific strategies for universal problems. Now for the fun stuff. As if we weren't having fun already. The following chapters discuss common relational dynamics, interactions, and communication styles we've all likely experienced in moments of conflict. If any of these situations end up sweeping you out to sea, try using these strategies to get back to solid ground. Sharing and receiving criticism, chapter 17. Kendra and Monica have been together for 3 years and have plans to wed in a few months. As the big day approaches, Monica is increasingly busy with the details, making sure every piece is in place. Kendra feels grateful for Monica's fastidiousness. What is that? Fastidiousness. Fastidish. Man, I'm saying it wrong. Fastidious. Fastidious. Fastidiousness. 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 Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Fastidiousness. Fastidious. Having highly developed taste. Meticulous. Meticulous. Kendra feels grateful for Monica's meticulousness because with an ongoing crisis at work. Kendra feels grateful for Monica's fastidiousness because with an ongoing crisis at work, Kendra has little time to consider the details. On a Saturday morning, while Kendra is reading the newspaper and having coffee, Monica approaches with a book of flower arrangements. Babe, which one do you like best? Monica asks. Kendra glances at the book and quickly points. This one, she says, and goes back to her paper. No, that one won't work, Monica says. It doesn't fit the color scheme. What about this one? Kendra glances over again. Sure, looks good. You didn't even look. Kendra puts the paper down again. Mom, I'm reading the paper. Can I do this later? You always do this, Monica insists. I've had a crazy week at work, Kendra says. Can't you just let me enjoy my weekend? I'm doing all the work here, and you can't even help choose flowers. Is it asking too much? Kendra can feel her temper rising, but she takes the beat and thinks, why would I want to head down this path with the woman I love? After inhaling deeply, she says, you're right. I'm not paying enough attention to our wedding plans. Honestly, I'm just stressed from work. I want to support you in whatever way you need. And I do care about our wedding. Can we just table it for an hour or two so I can relax? That way, I'll be really I'll be really present when we discuss the details. Kendra and Monica's conversation started as a prime example of criticism gone wrong. Both women, when was this book? I know this wasn't written back in the day because there wasn't no women getting married back in the day. What was this shit? 2020. New Age thought. I have to find some older books. Kendra and Monica's conversation started as a prime example of criticism gone wrong. Both women were delivering feedback on the other's behavior, but neither knew how to effectively express it or formulate a request. Luckily, Kendra passed and reflected on the conflict, so she was about to exacerbate, opting instead to reassure her partner and propose a plan that would satisfy both of their needs. Strategy session. Sharing criticism is vital for healthy relationships, both professional and personal. However, depending on the delivery, the critique may come across as judgmental or accusatory, rather than constructive and considerate. As a result, those on the receiving end may become aggressive, avoidant, or argumentative, especially when they are internalize the criticism as a reflection of their character. Naturally, this creates an environment where conflict thrives. This is why constructive criticism is key. Constructive criticism can be defined as helpful feedback that offers specific, actionable suggestions. Unfortunately, even constructive criticism is often internalized as negative, which makes giving and receiving feedback difficult. There are several practices you should keep in mind when you believe someone needs to hear an honest opinion or become more aware of how their behavior affects others. I like to frame criticism as delivering feedback because the notion of criticism tends to have a negative connotation. Giving feedback. Giving feedback to someone regarding an idea often takes place in real time with no pre planning. For some useful strategies, see Chapter 8. Giving feedback to someone regarding their behavior is a bit trickier because people often take comments about their actions personally. As such, feedback should be timely, fairly quickly after the behavior is observed, non judgmental, specific, not an abstract appraisal or attack, and actionable, and should facilitate a discussion rather than deliver a mandate. Prepare to deliver feedback by asking yourself the following question. Number one, questions. Number one, what exactly is the behavior that is in question? How is it negatively affecting them, me, or others? Number two, am I open to hearing their side? Number three, what are my suggestions for an action plan to correct the behavior? Number four, what accountability measures can be put in place? After answering these questions for yourself, try the following sequence. Invite a conversation by asking for permission. Can I talk to you about the meeting last night? Start on a positive note. In particular, address the value you see in their role relative to what you are about to give feedback on. Jim, I know what a I know what a considerate person you are. You always listen and communicate well with me and others in the office. Make an observation about the behavior. At the meeting last night, though, I noticed you spoke over Carol several times. Remark on the impact of the behavior. As a result, a few team members told me they felt very uncomfortable. Invite them to share their experience. I wanted to check in to see how you felt the meeting went. Listen and acknowledge. Hey, so you were feeling frustrated because seems to derail meetings with long lectures. Suggest a plan while providing accountability measures and support in making the change. Okay, I will do a better job of watching the clock to make sure no one rambles on. Could you try not to interrupt her next time? And we'll see how that goes. We can check in after the next few meetings. See Chapter 16 for tips on devising a plan of action. Receiving feedback. Receiving feedback can be difficult, especially if you feel attacked or accused. However, you may instead think of it as a learning moment, an opportunity for personal growth, and a way to enhance your relationship with the individual delivering the feedback. The following are a few pointers. Stay calm. Remember to breathe and that this is an opportunity. Listen and acknowledge. Do not defend or reject immediately. Watch your body language and positioning to convey a calm, caring, and curious mindset. When necessary, ask for specifics. If they are being vague or abstract, direct the conversation to specifics. Can you be more specific so I understand and can work on it. If your character has attacked, if your character is attacked, use I statements to be assertive. Own your role. Take responsibility for your behavior as much as possible. Stay open. Be willing to collaborate on an action plan. So if I'm hearing you correctly, at the meeting last night, you noticed that I was speaking over Carol, and you and the others felt uncomfortable as a result, right? I did speak over her, yes. I'm getting frustrated with Carol's lectures at meetings, but I'm definitely open to working on fixing this. Are you open to talking about standards and expectations for everyone at the meetings? Writer's advice. Giving feedback is best done in person, but if you decide to give feedback to someone via email, do not copy other people. At work, you might blind copy, BCC, whatever this is. An HR person, do not copy people. An HR person, instead, copying others will embarrass the person and will likely make them angry and resentful. Generally speaking, feedback should be given in private and as confidentially as possible. Keep in mind, feedback is absolutely necessary and should be delivered regularly. People must feel valued for what they're doing right and been given the opportunity to correct what they're doing wrong. When delivering feedback, make sure you are calm and balanced. Do not invite a conversation when you are triggered, tired, or otherwise agitated. Frame the criticism as about the ideas or behaviors, not the person's character. Stay in a team or family mindset. You are here to support each other in making an adjustment. Don't put it all on them. Make sure they know you have their back and believe in them. Implement a 2-to-1 rule. Positive feedback on behavior or performance should be delivered twice as often as constructive feedback because criticism is more easily received when one feels mostly valued in their role, whether in a personal relationship or at work. That was chapter 17, sharing and receiving criticism. Chapter 18, handling passive aggression. Andrew graduated from college last year and just started his first full-time job. With the consistent paycheck, he managed to move out of his childhood home in the suburbs and into an apartment with a few friends downtown. His mom, Ellen, raised him herself. She's proud of her only child, of course, but is still getting used to being an empty nester. During college, Andrew stayed with her over the summer and even returned some weekends during the school year to do his laundry, get a good meal, and relax. Nowadays, she considers herself lucky as if she sees him once a month. One Sunday morning, Andrew takes the train to the suburbs with the goal of getting a free brunch. Lo and behold, his mom has purchased some freshly baked bagels from the local deli. So, how is everything going? Ellen asks. How's the job? It's great, he says, spreading cream cheese on his bagel. I'm learning a ton. I think there's a lot of potential for me there. I hope so, she says. You never come to see your mother anymore, so it better be worth it. She smirks and goes quiet. Andrew is familiar with this brand of guilt trip, so he just smiles and nods. I'm going to hang out and watch the game, Andrew says, clearly clearing his plate, if that's okay. His mother obliges. Though she's happy to have him here, she can't help but feel some bitterness towards her son. While they watch the game, she brings him the occasional drink and snack, poking him with underhanded barbs, such as, don't worry about dear old mom. She's doing just fine without you. Andrew tries to ignore her, but the comments are getting to him. He loves his mother, and though he doesn't express it as often as he should, he's grateful for the sacrifices she made for him. Lying on the couch, he starts to feel guilty, then resentful. At halftime, he's not sure whether to tell her to stop or to simply leave. Ellen's core needs for care and identity are manifest as desires to see her son more regularly and to know hers to know she's worth visiting. As a result of Andrew's new job, she is feeling underappreciated. Unfortunately, she doesn't know how to properly express these sentiments, but still wants him to know how she feels. Miss Jessica, how you doing? Her passive aggressive jabs backfire. If she continues to play the role of her poor me mother, the situation is bound to erupt into conflict. Strategy session. We've all dealt with passive aggressive people or comments. In fact, most of us have probably been passive aggressive. As in Ellen's case, passive aggression is a sign that someone is either unwilling or unable to express what they are feeling or needing. Both are rooted in fear of the actual confrontation that can end up pushing someone away or leaving oneself hurt. Passive aggression can come in the form of guilt trips, gossip, backhanded compliments, rhetorical questions, ignoring someone, blaming others, or even neglecting to do something you know you ought to do. So, how do we handle passive aggression when we see it? Here are a few tips. Recognize pain. Recognize that someone is being passive aggressive not because their primary goal is to hurt you, but because they are in pain. In effect, their primary goal is to relieve their own pain. To do this, they'll need to have their core needs met, but most people don't understand how to effectively fulfill those needs. Instead, they come up with various unproductive ways of satisfying their needs and relieving painful feelings. Being cognizant of the other person's pain can help diminish your anger and foster compassion. Call it out. Call it out. Instead of being avoidant or passive, be assertive when you recognize passive aggression. Call out the feelings or tone you're noticing without accusing the other person of being bad or wrong. For example, Andrew could have asked, Mom, are you angry with me? Create some space. Most people who communicate passive aggressively do so because they are uncomfortable being assertive and are fearful of confrontation or appearing weak. However, you can create a safe space for them to assert themselves so they know it is okay to be vulnerable in front of you. For example, Andrew could have said, It's okay to tell me how you feel. Seriously, I want to know. Come on, Mom. Explore solutions. If you can create a safe space for them to express their needs and feelings, you will hopefully find out what's bothering them. Then you can co-create a plan to either help satisfy their needs based on their expectations of your relationship or clarify for them that the reason there is reasonable that would excuse me, or clarify for them what is reasonable to expect of you. It might be helpful to review chapter 5. If Ellen had said, You hardly come to see me anymore and I miss you, it just seems like you don't really care how I'm doing because you're so busy with your job. Then Andrew could have replied, I understand. Thank you for telling me that. And you're right, that I haven't been coming by as much lately. It's just the job is exhausting me, and on the weekends I want to relax in my apartment. I really do care about you though. I'm sorry I've been busy lately. Would it help if we talked at least once a week on the phone and I made sure to come visit every other weekend? Hold your boundaries. However, the conversation goes, whether you are able to help satisfy their needs or simply clarify what's reasonable to expect, you will need to set clear expectations or boundaries with them regarding their communication style. Let them know that you will continue to create a safe space for them to express themselves without judgment, but that you will not respond to passive aggressive behavior. For example, Andrew might say, "So going forward, could you please just let me know if you need something rather than keeping it to yourself or making little comments here and there?" Writerly advice. Texts and emails are rife with passive aggressive communication. Inferring tone through written communication can be confusing, which means we misconstrue certain messages as aggressive when in fact they are not, or vice versa. Because passive aggressive behavior is a way to express content without directly asserting oneself, such as hiding one's aggression behind sarcasm. It may be even easier to be passive aggressive via email or text. If you receive passive aggressive texts or emails, do yourself a favor. Do not ignore it, but do not participate in it. Instead, call the individual as soon as possible and clarify if they actually do need something that they are not expressing. Oh, my knees. Keep in mind, confronting passive aggressive behavior or communication does not have to lead to conflict. On the contrary, it can be a fantastic catalyst for deepening your relationship with the other person. You have a choice in how you respond to passive aggressive individuals. Will you be passive aggressive? Will you avoid and ignore it? Will you be defensive or overtly aggressive in response? Think about the kind of friend, coworker, and overall human being you want to be. How would that kind of person respond? If a passive aggressive individual never seems satisfied or does not respect the boundaries you set with them, you may need to rethink your relationship and whether the entire dynamic needs to be altered in some way. Whatever you decide, do not allow someone else's uh, incessant passive aggression to lead to stress, resentment, and negative interactions. Holding your boundaries is an act of self care. That was chapter 18, handling passive aggression. Chapter 19, responding to gaslighters. Rodney and Shelley have been divorced for several years and are co parenting their 12-year-old daughter, Angela. It has not been smooth sailing, not when they were together, and certainly not since they're separated. Nonetheless, they are both active parents who work hard to find ways to get along. However, dealing with Rodney can be frustrating and often confusing to Shelley. For instance, last month, the two privately agreed to a new custody schedule for their daughter. Angela would now alternate where she stays each week, rather than sticking to the more back and forth schedule she's been following for the past year. When Shelley arrives to pick up Angela for her week, though, Rodney comes out of the house confused. "What's going on?" he asks. "Aren't you supposed to pick her up tomorrow?" "I thought my week starts today," Shelley says. "Your week?" Rodney asks. "What are you talking about? You have 2 days, then I get her back Wednesday." Shelley sighs, of course. She thinks. "Rodney," she says, "we decided last week we were alternating entire weeks, getting off of the old schedule." "I never agreed to that," he insists. "Yes, we agreed. Remember you said—" "Whoa," he interrupts. "I never agreed. You were talking about it, and then you just must have decided in your mind that I agree. I never said those words. You always do this. You make things up in your head and then say I said them and when I didn't." Shelley knows the response is futile and she begins questioning herself. Did I actually hear him agree? Do I often just hear what I want to hear and create false memories that confirm my own needs? She isn't sure, but doesn't have time to argue with him. Okay, Rodney. So what do you want me to do? Should I just come back tomorrow? Rodney's behavior is a clear example of what psychologists call gaslighting. He manipulates others and sometimes even lies to get what he wants and to always be right. He does so by forcing people to question their own reality, calling into doubt their memories, sanity, and intellect. Even after more than a decade of interacting with Rodney, Shelley still lets it get to her, occasionally allowing his swaggering rhetoric to lead her down a path of self-doubt and confusion. Strategy session. It is almost impossible to resolve conflict with someone who's gaslights unless you simply appease them, or, in the rare instances, the gaslighter becomes self aware and seeks professional help to change their patterns. In any event, here are a few tactics to use when dealing with a gaslighter. Determine if it's a pattern. Not every disagreement about facts or every instance where someone insists they remember things differently is an example of gaslighting. Disagreements happen, memories are fickle, and people regularly remember events differently. Gaslighting, however, represents a pattern of manipulation. It may be identified in an individual who can never be wrong and who uses particular tactics to prove they're right, such as calling into question your memory, sanity, sensitivity level, intellect, and or general ability to understand reality. If you recognize this pattern, you are likely dealing with a gaslighter. However, if you label someone as a gaslighter anytime you have a disagreement about what happened or have a difference of opinion, then you could be guilty of gaslighting. Do not expect change. Do not expect change. Unless they resolve to get serious, unless they resolve to get serious professional help, you shouldn't expect gaslighters to change their ways. It will be difficult to use reason with a gaslighter. Once they set their minds on something, they will not listen to or consider any information that contradicts their beliefs or goals. Expecting change will only disappoint you. Accept who the person is and how they operate so you can properly deal with them and stop hoping for the enlightenment. Set clear boundaries. If you recognize you are dealing with a gaslighter, you need to set clear boundaries with them. To clarify it is unlikely they will respect these boundaries. Gaslighters typically do as they please and will not abide by any rules. They will deny understanding or having been informed of any boundaries or rules you have set. And they are notorious for breaking agreements on the grounds that they do not know what you're talking about. Nevertheless, it is important you create boundaries for yourself, which you can uphold in each moment of your interaction with them. If you notice they make you the butt of the joke, roll their eyes at you, call you crazy, or criticize you in any way, let them know you will not stand for it. You might say something along these lines. If you call me crazy, I'm going to hang up. Or if you're going to question my memory, I'm done with this conversation. If they continue, you must disengage. Write down everything. When you make agreements, plans, or promises with gaslighters, whether it's an ex-spouse, a boss, a coworker, or a friend, try to write down everything, every small or seemingly benign statements. though it likely will not help you hold the gaslighter accountable. Given it is virtually impossible for them to admit they're wrong, solid evidence of your interaction can help you maintain your sanity. The key to a gaslighter's manipulation is to insist that your version of reality is incorrect. Be able to verify your account, Being able to verify your account can help you free yourself from their grip. Oh yeah, I bet. I bet. Limit interactions. The scripture, observe when around the indiscreet, observe the time. Limit interactions. If it at all possible, limit your interactions with the gaslighter. If you work with one, you may do better being transferred to a different department. If you work for one, you may be better off finding a new job. If you're in a romantic relationship with one, you might try to seek couples counseling or extract yourself from that relationship. If you have some business or personal reason to minimally stay in touch, such as co parenting with an ex partner, then limit your interactions only to what is necessary for the management of your common goal. Yeah, that's a good one. Do you think that by maintaining your congenial relationship with your relationship, you will ever truly get through to them? On the contrary, one of your main reasons gaslighting is so effective is because gaslighters intersperse their manipulations with moments of camaraderie and alliance. When you feel friendly and allied with them, they're blah, blah, blah. I feel like Porky the Pig. They're blah, 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 blah. When you feel friendly or allied with them, their manipulation works even better. Keep in mind, gaslighters are not necessarily bad people. Mostly they are insecure individuals who need to maintain total control so that their fragile sense of identity or autonomy is not shattered. As long as you remember not to buy into their stories, feeling compassion for a gaslighter's insecurities can make life easier for you because compassion is as much more peaceful emotion to hold on to than perpetual anger or disappointment. Playing into gaslighting and allowing yourself to engage with gaslighters over long periods of time can seriously hurt your self esteem because it is very difficult to interact with the gaslighter without regularly doubting yourself. If you have no choice but to regularly interact with the gaslighter, it is important to create a support network of trusted friends, family members, or colleagues whom you can check in with and get a reality check from. Prevailing cultural attitudes and values play an outright role in shaping what's widely considered right or wrong and true or false. People, particularly people, particularly those who are marginalized or who express opinions or facts that challenge dominant narratives, may be more exposed to gaslighting. I kind of want to keep going. Let's see. That was chapter 19. We only got 3 chapters left. That was chapter 19, responding to gaslighting. Let's go. Let's go and do it. Let's do it. Chapter 20. Dealing with insubordination. Trent is holding his weekly departmental meeting, during which he has each team member check in on how they did with their goals for the week and set new goals for the upcoming week. When the check-in reaches Carter, Trent is already Trent is already pessimistic. Yeah, I'm still working on temp reconfig. Carter starts out. Thought I would have it done this week, but it's taking longer than expected. As for the process update sheet, yeah, I haven't gotten to that yet. Carter seems indifferent to his failure to complete his task. Unfortunately, this is the third week in a row that Carter has not met his goals, and it's consistent with his general attitude at the office. Excuse me. Okay, Carter, is there any completion date you want to set so we can update the team task sheet? Trent asks. I'm not really sure how long it's going to take, he says. I guess I can shoot for next week. This sort of nonchalant approach towards deadlines is not setting a good example for the team, and it's stagnating everyone else who's dependent on Carter's assignments. We sort of need a hard date from you, Carter, Trent continues. Otherwise, it's hard to schedule Neil and Priya's project timelines. Well, maybe if I was actually given reasonable time frames and some help with these enormous tasks, I'd have a better idea. The tension in the room is palpable. Trent wants to be careful not to completely derail the meeting. Carter, what would be a reasonable timeline for you? I don't know, Carter responds, his voice slightly raised now. But these long meetings every week aren't helping. Trent determines this is not the time or place to address Carter's attitude or his task challenges. He stays calm and moves on to the next team member. Carter is obviously being insubordinate in terms of both his responsibilities and communication style with his boss and his coworkers. He fails to meet deadlines or complete assigned projects, and he exhibits passive aggressive and sometimes just aggressive communication towards Trent in front of the whole department. Naturally, this reflects poorly on Trent's leadership abilities. Allowing this to continue will not only stall productivity, but also inevitably lead to lower team morale and a lack of psychological safety in meetings. Strategy session. If you are dealing with an insubordinate employee or organizational member, here are a few do's and don'ts to consider. Do. Meet in private. Should you need to speak to a team member about insubordinate behavior, do so privately and confidentially. If Trent had called Carter out on his behavior and embarrassed him in front of everyone, it likely would have made the situation worse because insubordinate individuals are usually already on the defensive. Additionally, calling someone out in public will set an example for other team members that they could also be embarrassed if they make mistakes. If after addressing the behavior, the insubordinate individual again acts out in front of people, then right there on the spot, you can ask the individual to step inside your office or the conference room so you can address the issue immediately, but in private. Address the behavior. To address insubordinate behavior, whether involving the task of or communication, follow the same procedure from giving feedback in chapter 17. Ooh-wee. For instance, Trent might say, Carter, when you don't meet your project deadlines, it slows down Neil and Priya's work, which impedes our ability to launch the project on time. Also, when you raise your voice in meetings, especially when talking to me, it sets a bad example for the rest of the team and creates tension for me and others. Can you tell me what's going on for you? Ask them what they need. What do you need to help change the behavior? For instance, does Carter need more time, more help in managing his workflow, or more assistance in managing his workload in general? What would help the other person get back on task and follow appropriate rules of conduct in the office? Ask them what you can do better. All managers want to believe the problem is with the insubordinate person, but very often leaders play a role too. Perhaps You've simply allowed the behavior to continue for too long. Hmm. Hmm. Perhaps you just allowed the behavior to continue on for too long. Or perhaps you haven't provided the necessary support and resources for the individual to be successful. Okay, could be in there too. In any event, ask them what you, as a leader, can do better. What changes would they like to see from you, from the company as a whole? Is there an opportunity to collaborate with the employees on how their suggested changes could work or be implemented? Document the insubordination. Even if HR is not yet involved in the conversation, it would serve you well to document each instance of insubordination and each conversation you have with the individual. You can let them know in a friendly way at first that you need to document your conversation per company guidelines, but that it shouldn't affect them as long as their behavior changes. Remind them that you are there to support such a change and not to get them in trouble. Don't threaten them. Though we want to hold employees accountable for their actions, threatening someone will only make them more defensive, which could ultimately prevent a resolution. As Simon Sinek suggests in his book, Leaders Eat Last, it is our job as leaders to ensure our team members feel safe and protected, not threatened. Giving them measures of accountability and potential consequences is important, but letting them know you are on their team so those consequences do not have to be enacted is equally important. Find the line between introducing reasonable consequences and making intimidating threats. Let it continue. If you notice insubordinate behavior, act quickly. Do not let it continue and simply hope it will get better. Address it the first time you notice it so you can help the individual get back on track. By allowing insubordinate behavior to persist, you are teaching, your team what is appropriate and acceptable. How people, including yourself, accountability or accountable, hold people, including yourself, accountable for their actions. Set a bad example. If you are going to set the rules of conduct and expect others to abide by them, you had better abide by them as well. Do not scream, treat people poorly, or fail to meet deadlines unless you are deliberately indicating this behavior is acceptable. Leaders must walk their talk, or else no one will respect them. Keep in mind, leaders must walk their talk, or else no one will respect them. Keep in mind, your job as a leader is to create a safe space that allows for creative collaboration. If you don't effectively manage the team space, but instead allow insubordination or inappropriate behavior to recur, the organization can feel unsafe and chaotic to other team members. One way to ensure your team members have the tools and support they need to be successful is to hold annual or semi-annual 360-degree reviews for you and the company, meaning managers review employees and employees review managers. Employees will need to feel safe and typically remain anonymous when giving feedback. If you decide to do employee surveys of any kind, it is important that you actually do something with the results. If employees take a survey and never hear about it again, you have gotten nothing out of it, out of the effort, and the lack of action will likely create greater resentment and frustration, which can only lead to further insubordination, lower morale, and higher employee turnover. Being a leader who inspires people to follow rather than a manager who demands people follow, is a lifelong learning lesson. For more resources on effective leadership, see the resource section in page 150. That was chapter 20. Let's get to 21. That was chapter 20, dealing with insubordination. 21, resolving a conflict with a supervisor. On Tuesday, Jared sits in on a meeting between his boss, Ray, and one of his clients. During the meeting, Ray asks what Jared thinks about a particular deliverable. Jared gives his opinion, but to his surprise, Ray brazenly shuts down the idea and drives the conversation to the next point. Later that day, Ray calls Jared into his office for a debrief. So, how do you think the meeting went? Ray asks. To be honest, Jared begins hesitantly. I think everyone is a little frustrated with the pace of delivery. Lena made a comment to me about it taking forever, and I'm not sure they're totally into the new design. Listen, Ray starts. Lena and I just met yesterday, and she didn't say anything to me about being frustrated or whatever. And Zach hasn't even finished the design yet, so they don't have the final product. Yeah, but he can't complete the design without. Jared, why are you always bringing up problems? Ray asks, his voice rising and face reddening. Every time I talk to you, it's one problem after another. Do you think you could do a better job at the lead? Jared goes quiet. He feels trapped. Well, Ray says, what's your deal? Why are you so negative all the time? Honestly, Ray, I don't know what to say right now. You seem pretty angry, and I don't want to say the wrong thing. I'm not angry, Ray exclaims. I'm confused. What's so bad about this company? Jared, what's so bad about this company, Jared? That you always have to say something negative. Again, Jared is at a loss. Maybe I should just go back to my desk and we can talk later. You do what you need to do, Jared, Ray says, turning back to the paperwork on his desk. Having a manager who elicits feedback but doesn't genuinely want to hear it can be extremely frustrating for employees like Jared, particularly when their goodwill is perceived as an insult. Workers who are constantly on edge have no mental space to do their best work. As a result, they may stop taking risks or suggesting inventive ideas for fear of failure and rejection. Ultimately, if organizations hope to maintain creative, efficient, and productive environments, their leaders need to create a space for psychological safety and autonomy. Strategy session. If you have a great relationship and communicate well with your boss, then simply approaching them with the methods throughout this book should help resolve any conflict that arises. If, however, you are like Jared and many other clients I have worked with, you may find some of these additional strategies helpful for confronting a supervisor. First, get advice and or support. If you have a difficult boss, the first step you might take is to get support from colleagues, someone who has learned to navigate their relationship with your boss. Similarly, you can engage a friend outside the company who has dealt with difficult bosses. Learn what has worked for others. At the very least, Talk to those who have also worked for difficult people so you don't feel alone with this problem. The capacity to productively navigate social challenges and maintain your mental emotional health while doing so can be significantly diminished in isolation and significantly enhanced with social support. Be transparent about the experiences of the confrontation. Once you work up the courage to approach your boss, open with a positive remark, then emphasize how awkward or uncomfortable you feel with the confrontation. For Jared, this might sound like, Ray, I recognize how much experience you have, and I know I can learn a lot by working from you, which is why I feel somewhat strange right now bringing this up with you. Being transparent about how you feel during the confrontation can help lower your boss's defenses by suggesting you don't necessarily feel entitled to call them on their behavior or hold them accountable, even though this is what you are doing. Ask about the best way to confront them. If you have a boss who is constantly triggered or seems overly sensitive to everyone's feedback, have a conversation first about how to approach them. For instance, Jared might say, I don't want to seem negative, and I certainly don't mean to insult or disrespect you. I very much respect your experience and knowledge. So I'm just wondering, what the best way is to approach you with challenges I may have, or how to give you feedback when it's not all positive. What would be the right language to use so that I won't come across as negative or disrespectful? Hopefully, your boss can indicate the language that would be more open to receiving. If they autonomously identify such language, the next time you approach them with feedback, there's a better chance of your boss actually hearing it without being triggered. It's also key to know when to reassure. If you notice your boss getting angry and defensive, try your best to understand what they might be interpreting from your language. In Jared's case, it was obvious Ray felt threatened or challenged as the boss, as if Jared were suggesting he could do a better job as the lead. If you can identify where your boss is feeling threatened, you can directly reassure them. As a default, assume your boss feels disrespected and do what you can do to reassure them that it is not what you intended. Know when to disengage. Know when to disengage. All of these strategies in this chapter are attempts to lower your boss's defenses so they are approachable and open to hearing your feedback or requests. If nothing works and your boss gets defensive no matter what you try, you need to disengage. Consider the power dynamic. There is no point in trying to fight with the supervisor unless you want to sink into even deeper conflict. Know when to include HR. If your boss is still hostile or defensive after attempting to confront them directly, it may be time to involve an HR representative, or if there is no HR department, another lead at the company. Bringing in a third party witness will help hold everyone in the meeting accountable for their words and actions. Keep in mind, if you chose to continue working under a difficult boss who simply will not hear you, then take ownership over the fact that you wake up every morning choosing to go to work because you have determined that staying is better than leaving. This acceptance does not require that you sit idly by while a boss tramples over you or others. You can still do what you must to improve the situation at work. Just remember that you are choosing to be involved in that effort. If your boss is seriously driving you insane for your own sake, ask yourself if the job is really worth it. Try imagining or writing about what life might look like if you left. Instead of thinking about the worst case scenarios, such as I'll be jobless, penniless, lost, and scared, imagine the best case scenarios, such as I'll work with a great team and a fantastic leader, and I'll make more money and be more stable. What can I learn from this situation? What does it tell you about the kind of leader you want to be? Write down all the traits you aspire to have as a leader to work and or in your at work and or in your personal life. That was chapter 21. Resolving conflict with a supervisor. We're on the last chapter. Confronting a bully. Chapter 22. Confronting a bully. Paige and Jean met last year at work. Both were new to the company and the city, so becoming friends was easy. Paige is a few years older and came in at a managerial level, whereas Jeannie was hired as an assistant to the executive team. However, because they don't work directly together, it never complicated their friendship. Socially, their personalities complement each other. Jeannie's gentle nature tempers Paige's big personality. Though Jeannie has noticed her friend chastises several people at work, she doesn't feel like it's her place to say anything. On a long overdue girls' night, the two discuss Jeannie's new boyfriend. To be honest, Paige says, after a couple of drinks, I'm surprised it lasted this long. Why would you say that? Jeannie asked. I mean, come on. You're not exactly. Paige trails off, trying to choose her words carefully. You're not exactly in a best spot. In life, I mean. What do you mean? Jeannie asked, confused. I mean, you need to grow up a little, Paige continues. You're just starting your career. You don't have any money. What does a great guy like that see in you? I mean, unless he's not actually that great. Jeannie is taken back. Paige has never talked to her like that before, treating her like she treats her subordinates at work, like she's weak, stupid, and small. Paige says, Paige, she says, trying to keep her cool. Please don't talk to me like that. Are you serious? Paige responds, raising her voice. Since when did you get so sensitive? When did you get so rude? Jeannie replies. I'm just being honest, Jeannie, Paige says, smiling smugly. You should look in the mirror sometimes. Self-reflection. With that, Jeannie gathers her things. I'm out. See you at work, Paige. Paige is a bully. Though her domineering presence is central to her appeal, she also uses it in a way to intimidate, insult, and coerce people she feels the need to control. Fortunately, Jeannie stood up for herself, letting Paige know what sort of language is unacceptable to her and holding her boundary by leaving the situation when it did not improve. Hmm. This type of dynamic can occur anywhere and between anyone when the power imbalance is either real or perceived. The more powerful individual repeatedly uses physical, emotional, or psychological intimidation to get what they want and control the environment. For your own peace of mind, autonomy, and safety, you need to stand up for yourself against bullies at the right times in a courageous and appropriate way. Strategy session. Here are a few tools to use when confronting a bully. Recognize and acknowledge. Sometimes, if people are being bullied and they have a professional or emotional stake in the relationship, they simply avoid or ignore the bully. They may deny that it's happening and chalk it up to something trivial like, oh, he's just stressed out right now. If you are being bullied, repeatedly intimidated, or aggressively coerced by someone who has more power than you, and you haven't acknowledged it, isn't it about time you call it out? Check in with yourself. Notice how you feel about you. If you don't feel like yourself anymore, or you feel generally small or weak around this individual, realize this is not a healthy dynamic. Pick your battles. If you do recognize a bully, Should you confront them? Approaching a bully or attempting to change the dynamic requires some introspection. Ask yourself the following questions. How often does this occur? If they get angry and yell once or twice a year, that may simply be part of a normal relationship. If they are aggressive or intimidating often, once or twice per month, they are probably a bully. How valuable is this relationship? Is it truly worth staying in this dynamic, at least in its current configuration? If you see value in a relationship, is the bullying worth addressing? The key question here is this: are you truly able to brush off their comments? Or do they affect your self esteem? Be honest with yourself about this. Almost all bullying situations will affect your self confidence, which is unacceptable. What are the potential consequences of doing something about it? What might happen if you leave the relationship, the department, or the company? On the contrary, what might happen if you confront the bully and attempt to change their behavior? Write out the potential outcomes of each path and how you will respond if any of them come to pass. That way, whatever you decide, you'll know you are willing and able to handle whatever comes next. Do not be an easy target. If you decide to confront them or stand up to them, it's time to make a commitment to yourself that you will no longer be an easy target. This means you will do the following: set your boundaries in a calm, respectful manner. Let the individual know what behaviors or language is unacceptable to you. Have specific examples, such as times, places, and exact phrases that were used, rather than vague references such as you always, which is too easy for the other person to refute or gaslight. Let the individual know that from now on, anytime you witness that behavior, you will call it out and not respond until they modify their behavior. Hold your boundary. Remember that you are reteaching this individual how to treat you. It may take time to reprogram their behavior, so don't let it slide. Every time they cross a boundary, call them out and don't respond until they modify their behavior. Also, be wary of gaslighting. If you call it out and they say, you're just being sensitive, don't believe them. Chances are that you just appear more sensitive to them because you've chosen to call them out on previously accepted behavior. Separate if necessary. At some point, if a bully simply won't stop bullying, you must leave the dynamic, no matter if it is a family member, a friend, co-worker, or a boss. They must learn that they will lose you if they treat you like this. And you must know that you will not stand for that sort of treatment in your life. This is critical for your self-esteem. Get support. Confronting a bully, exiting a relationship, or leaving a company is not easy. You'll need support in the following ways. In personal matters, you might confide in a trusted friend or family member who will keep the matter private and offer unconditional support and care. If you are embarrassed or do not want to bring friends or family into this issue, find a counselor, a therapist, or a coach. In professional settings, recruit a trusted colleague, supervisor, or HR representative to help support and guide you through whatever process is necessary. Writerly advice. Some people hide behind a screen because it gives them a sense of anonymity. Even when they know see the individual and see them in real life. If you notice bullying via email or text, I suggest confronting the individual in person or on the phone to let them know what it is and what is and isn't acceptable. no matter the medium. This also shows them you will not allow them to hide behind the screen. Cyberbullying is an entire issue unto itself. For information on the subject, see the resources section, page 150. Keep in mind, if you are a witness to someone else's bullying, offering support can be tricky but extremely important. In a personal relationship, you can talk directly to the friend or family member being bullied. Let them know you are concerned with the bully's behavior, and that you are always there for them if they want to talk or need help in any way. Be a strong force for them. Insinuate that you are not afraid of the bully, even if you do not say so explicitly. If you notice bullying happening at work, between colleagues, or involving a supervisor, you may talk to an HR representative or your direct supervisor to describe what you're noticing and how it makes you feel, which will help company leadership open an inquiry into the situation. In some cases, entrenched power dynamics can make it difficult to identify bullying behavior. Women, in particular, may have been brought up to believe it is normal to be treated in a certain way by a supervisor or a spouse. If you are unsure if you are being bullied, you can check in with a trusted friend or counselor to get an outsider's perspective. Domestic violence and abuse from partners or parents is certainly a prevalent and extreme form of bullying. It is, however, beyond the scope of this book. For a few key resources about addressing domestic violence or abuse, please see the resources on page 150, which is the very next page. Resources. That was chapter 22. The last chapter of the book, Confronting a Bully. So this book has the resources, references, index, acknowledgments. Well, that's another one down there. We are done. We are done with the conflict resolution playbook by Jeremy Pollack. We have accomplished the goal, which was to finish the book, man. I hope that y'all are able to keep up, grab something from it. Maybe it's something that you can learn and grow from these last 6 chapters. I'm gonna have to go back and change the name. Let me put another mark on another hash for another book read, man. I'm almost up to 20 books, man. I'm 15, I'm 18 books strong. 18 books strong. Yeah, I'm knocking them down. But I hope that it was something that, like I said, I hope it was something that you could take from this conflict resolution playbook. I know there was a couple of things, quite a few things that, I have to ponder on and see how can I apply it. How can I apply it? How can I use it? In what areas, can I use these things so that way I can grow and become better in all aspects? And hopefully y'all can do the same. But, oh man. The next book is the dreaded read. Oh, I'm dreading this read. Oh, another one down. Another one bites the dust. Oh, Lord. Conflict resolution playbook. All right, man. All right. We are going to read this bullshit. Oh, man. So the next book on the list is this humbug. I don't want to read The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. I really don't want to read this book, man. I've been putting off reading this book for so long, but I guess I'll read it, man. I'll force myself to read it. I'm going to force myself to read it. So I can go ahead and get it out of the way. So that way I can just say I read it. That way I can say I read it. Who knows, man? Who knows? Maybe there's something in there that I can learn and grow from. I'll try to come at it with a more open mind. I just think it's bullshit. But we shall see. The 5 love languages. Hopefully we could. It only has 13 chapters. So hopefully we can move through it just as quickly as we move through the conflict resolution playbook. Because I'm sure ready to get to the other books, the ones I want to read. But next time, man, I'm ready to get to on the real side. But I still got one more book to read after this one before we can get to on the real side. Okay, I'm just trying to see what. Yeah, man, this. Oh man, I'm just dreading reading this. I'm dreading reading this. You know, it sometimes it. I guess the word is trigger. You know, this book triggers me. Oh man, the love languages. What? Oh, you don't believe it. That's how I feel. You don't believe that stuff. Oh man, I hear people talking about the love language. Man, I don't believe that shit. I guess we'll get it out the way. You know, not everybody gonna like the books that I read. Not even me. I might not like all the books that I read, but you know, we'll get it out the way. We'll read it, man. We'll read it. Oh man. Like some artists, you know, who make music, they don't like the music. They don't like, you know, a lot of the music, some of the music they make. And sometimes it'd be the music that they don't like, be the music that everybody like. That's the stuff that be live and make them all their money. You know, but we'll see. We down another book. Man, thank y'all for rocking with me for the completion of another book. Let's keep putting them away. Let's keep pulling them off the shelf, finishing them, and putting them back on the shelf. One by one, seeing what we can learn and grow from. Well, till next time, man. To the next reading session of Reading with Shilo, man. I'm Shilo. Shilo out. Shalom. Have a nice night. Or morning, whenever you get this. See this.